Montana, December 1920. The room smells of medicine and dying. Benjamin Thornton lies in the bed where his wife Eleanor drew her last breath 35 years ago. He is 60 years old. His hands, once strong enough to break a horse or build a house, now tremble against the quilt his daughter Abby stitched for him last Christmas. The quilt is heavy. Everything is heavy now. Outside the window, snow falls on Thornton Creek Ranch, soft and silent. The way snow always falls in Montana when a man's time is running out. His grandson Michael sits beside the bed, 12 years old, dark hair like his father Daniel, eyes like Eleanor. The boy has been here for 3 days, reading to him, bringing him water, asking questions that Benjamin doesn't always have the strength to answer. But tonight is different. Tonight, Benjamin knows the doctor's last visit was truly the last. Tonight, he feels the cold creeping in from the edges the way it crept in on his sister Sarah all those years ago. And if he's going to die, he wants Michael to understand, to know the truth, to carry it forward. Michael. His voice is a rasp, barely more than wind through dead grass. The boy leans closer. Yes, Grandpa. I need to tell you something, a story, before I go. You're not going anywhere. Michael's voice cracks. He's trying to be brave. Benjamin recognizes that kind of trying. He's been doing it for 60 years. Boy, I'm dying. Doctor said I got maybe till Christmas. That's 5 days, maybe less. Benjamin coughs, tastes copper. But before I go, I want you to know how this all started. How this ranch, this family, everything you see around you came to be. Michael wipes his eyes with the back of his hand. You mean the orphans, the children you saved? That's part of it, but that's not where it starts. Benjamin turns his head on the pillow, looks at the boy, really looks at him. It starts with me being a coward, the worst kind of coward. And it starts with the person who paid for my cowardice with her life. I don't understand. You will. Benjamin closes his eyes, not from pain, from memory. You know your great-great-aunt Sarah, the one buried under the oak tree next to your great-grandmother Eleanor. I know the grave. Then you know she died young, 8 years old. What you don't know is why. What you don't know is that I killed her. Michael gasps. That's not true. It is true, not with my hands, but with my cowardice, with my silence, with my fear. Benjamin opens his eyes, and that's where this story begins, with a winter night 40 years ago, with a little girl running into a blizzard, with a boy too scared to follow. He takes a breath, another, the air rattles in his chest like stones in a jar. Listen close, Michael, because this is how a coward becomes a man. This is how a man builds a family from ash and bone and guilt. This is the story of Thornton Creek Ranch, and it starts with the worst night of my life. Montana Territory, December 1880. Benjamin Thornton was 20 years old and he was nobody. A tall young man with his father's shoulders and his mother's weak heart. His mother had been dead 10 years. His father had been dead 5. And Benjamin lived with his stepfather, Harold Becker, in a small house on the edge of what would someday become Copper Hollow. Harold Becker was a hard man made harder by whiskey and failure. He had married Benjamin's mother for her land and found out too late that the land was worthless. Rocky soil, bad water. Nothing grew there except resentment and rage. When she died, giving birth to Sarah, Harold's rage found a new target. Sarah, 8 years old, dark hair like their mother, eyes that still held light despite everything Harold did to extinguish it. Benjamin worked in the copper mines then, 16-hour days in the dark. He'd come home exhausted, muscles screaming, lungs full of dust, and find Sarah waiting for him on the porch. She'd run to him, throw her small arms around his waist, and for a moment the world would be bearable. But Harold hated any joy he didn't create, hated seeing Sarah happy, hated seeing Benjamin smile. The night it happened, Benjamin came home to find Harold drunk. More drunk than usual. The kind of drunk where his words slurred together and his hands couldn't hold a glass steady, but could still make a fist just fine. Sarah had broken a plate while washing dishes, not on purpose, just a child's clumsy hands in a slippery dish and bad luck. The plate had been Harold's mother's, the only thing of value he owned, and now it was shattered on the floor in 6 pieces. Benjamin walked in to find Harold standing over Sarah. The girl was on her knees picking up the pieces. Her hands were shaking. She'd cut her finger. Blood dripped onto the white porcelain shards. "Look what you did." Harold's voice was cold, colder than the wind outside. "You stupid, useless girl. Can't do anything right. Just like your mother." "I'm sorry." Sarah's voice was so small. "I didn't mean to. I'm sorry. I'll be more careful. I promise." "Sorry doesn't fix broken things." Harold grabbed her arm, yanked her to her feet. The plate pieces scattered. "Sorry is just noise. You know what we do with things that break? We throw them away." He raised his hand. Benjamin saw it happening, saw the fist forming, saw the trajectory, knew exactly how hard it would hit, how much it would hurt. And Benjamin said nothing. He stood in the doorway, tall and strong, 20 years old, capable of stopping this, capable of putting himself between Harold and Sarah, capable of saying no, of saying stop, of saying, "If you touch her, I'll break your arm." But he didn't. He stood there, frozen. And he told himself he was being smart, being careful. That fighting Harold would only make things worse. That tomorrow when Harold sobered up, Benjamin could talk to him, reason with him, make him understand. He told himself all of this, and he believed none of it. The truth was simpler. The truth was he was afraid. Harold hit Sarah 3 times, once across the face, once on the shoulder when she fell, once on her back when she tried to crawl away. Each blow made a sound like a hammer on wet wood. Sarah cried out the first time, whimpered the second, made no sound the third. Then Harold stumbled to his chair, poured another drink, forgot they existed. Benjamin went to Sarah, helped her up. She was crying silently. Blood ran from her nose. Her eye was already swelling. But worse than the physical damage was the look she gave him. Not accusation, not anger, just confusion, hurt, as if she couldn't understand why her big brother hadn't protected her. "I'm sorry," Benjamin whispered. "I should have." "It's okay." Sarah's voice was thick with tears. "I know you're scared of him too." Those words hit harder than Harold's fists ever could. Benjamin took Sarah to their room, the room they shared because the house only had 2 bedrooms, and Harold claimed the second for himself. He cleaned her face with a wet cloth, found a piece of ice wrapped in a rag for her eye, tucked her into bed. "It'll be better tomorrow," he said, knowing it wouldn't be. "I'll talk to him, make him understand." Sarah just nodded. She didn't believe him. She was 8 years old and she already knew the truth that Benjamin was still learning. That some people can't be reasoned with. That some people choose cruelty the way others choose kindness. That words don't stop fists. "I love you, Ben," Sarah said as she closed her eyes. "You're a good brother." But he wasn't, and they both knew it. Benjamin lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, hating himself, planning conversations he would never have, imagining confrontations he would never risk. He fell asleep sometime near dawn, and when he woke, Sarah was gone. Her bed was empty. Her shoes were missing. The front door stood open, and outside a blizzard had begun. Benjamin ran into the main room. Harold was passed out in his chair, snoring. An empty bottle lay on the floor beside him. The man hadn't even made it to bed. Benjamin grabbed his coat, his boots, ran outside into the storm. The wind hit him like a wall. Snow fell so thick he could barely see 10 feet ahead. The temperature had dropped overnight, far below zero, the kind of cold that kills in minutes if you're not prepared. And Sarah had run out in just her nightdress and shoes. Benjamin called her name, screamed it into the wind. No answer came back. He looked for tracks, but the snow had already covered them. He didn't know which direction she'd gone. Didn't know if she'd headed for town or the woods, or just run blindly away from the pain. He stood there in the storm, and for the second time in 12 hours, Benjamin Thornton made a choice based on fear. He could search for her, risk getting lost himself, possibly die in the blizzard trying to find a little girl who might already be dead. Or he could go back inside, wake Harold, get help, organize a proper search party. He told himself the second option was smarter, more logical. That dying in the snow wouldn't help Sarah, that he needed to think clearly, act rationally, but the truth was simpler. He was afraid to die, afraid of the cold and the storm and the darkness, afraid to risk everything for a little girl who might already be beyond saving. So Benjamin went back inside, woke Harold, explained what happened. Harold's response was to hit him, hard, across the face. "You let her run out in a blizzard. Are you stupid?" The irony was lost on neither of them. They got help, roused the neighbors, organized a search party. 10 men went out into the storm. They searched all day, through the blizzard, through the impossible cold. They found nothing. The storm lasted 2 days. When it finally cleared, they resumed the search. Benjamin was the one who found her, 3 miles from the house, in a small grove of trees where she'd tried to take shelter. She'd curled up against a fallen log, pulled her nightdress tight around her knees. Her arms were wrapped around herself. Her eyes were open. She'd frozen to death. Slowly, painfully, alone in the dark. In her hand, she clutched a piece of bread, hard and frozen. She must have grabbed it from the kitchen before she ran, thought it would sustain her, thought she could survive if she just had something to eat. She'd been 8 years old, and she died thinking she was worthless, thinking she deserved to be thrown away, thinking her own brother hadn't cared enough to save her. Benjamin knelt in the snow beside her body. He didn't cry, couldn't cry. The grief was too big for tears, too heavy for sound. It sat in his chest like a stone, like a monument to his own cowardice. He picked her up, carried her home. Her body was light, far too light, as if death had somehow made her weigh less. They buried Sarah 3 days later. Harold didn't attend, said he had work to do, said the girl had made her own choice, said Benjamin should have stopped her. On that last point, Harold was right. Benjamin stood beside the grave. The preacher said words that meant nothing. The neighbors offered condolences that changed nothing. And Benjamin made a promise. He spoke it aloud to the frozen earth and the gray sky and the ghost of a little girl who deserved so much better. "Sarah, I swear to you, I swear on whatever remains of my soul, I will never let this happen again. Not to any child. Not ever. I will not be a coward anymore. I will not stand by and watch. I will not let fear make me weak." His voice cracked. "I'm sorry I failed you, but I won't fail anyone else. That's my promise. That's my vow." The wind answered with silence. Benjamin left Harold's house that night, took what little money he had saved from the mines, walked away and never looked back. He didn't confront Harold, didn't seek revenge, didn't even say goodbye. Those would all be acts of a man who cared what Harold thought. Benjamin had stopped caring about anything except keeping his promise. He bought a piece of land, 40 acres on the edge of what locals called Thornton Creek. It was cheap because it was remote, far from town, far from other homesteads, just forest and creek and mountains in the distance. It was perfect. Benjamin spent 3 years building. He cut timber with his own hands, laid foundation stones he'd hauled from the creek bed, raised walls and joists and rafters. The house he built was too big for one man, 8 rooms, a kitchen large enough for a dozen people, a dining table that could seat 14. People who saw it asked why. Why build so big? Why so many rooms? Benjamin never answered. But he knew he was building for the family he didn't have yet, for the children he would save, for the promise he'd made to Sarah. By 1883, the ranch was operational. Benjamin had cattle, horses, crops in the field. He'd hired help, a foreman named Thomas who didn't ask questions, a housekeeper named Martha who didn't judge. He'd built something real, but the house still felt empty. The rooms still echoed. And every night Benjamin lay in his too large bed and thought about Sarah curled up in the snow. Then he met Eleanor. Eleanor Davis taught school in Copper Hollow, 25 years old, sharp-minded, independent. She'd grown up in an orphanage in Missouri after her parents died in a riverboat accident. She knew what it meant to be alone, to be unwanted, to survive on the scraps of other people's charity. They met at church. Benjamin attended rarely but felt compelled that Sunday, some instinct, some pull he couldn't name. He sat in the back pew and listened to the sermon without hearing it, and when the service ended, she approached him. "You look like a man running from something," she said. No introduction, no pleasantries, just observation. Benjamin was startled. "I'm not running." "Then what are you doing?" "Standing still." She smiled, small but genuine. "That's just another word for hiding." They talked, walked through town, ended up at the small restaurant that served coffee and pie. Benjamin found himself telling her things he'd never told anyone. About Sarah, about his cowardice, about the house he'd built that felt like a monument to guilt. Eleanor listened without judgment. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something that changed everything. You know what I think? I think you're waiting. For what? For permission to forgive yourself. For someone to tell you that building a big empty house is enough penance. That you've suffered enough and now you can move on. She leaned forward. But nobody's going to give you that permission. You have to take it. You have to decide that your sister's death means something more than your guilt. What else could it mean? It could mean you actually keep your promise. Stop building monuments and start building life. Fill those rooms. Give that house purpose. Turn your guilt into action. Her eyes held his, steady and certain. You said you'd never let a child suffer like Sarah did. So don't. Go find them, the ones nobody wants, the ones nobody sees, and give them what Sarah never got. Give them someone who shows up, someone who doesn't run, someone who chooses them. Benjamin stared at her. This woman he'd known for 3 hours. This stranger who somehow understood everything. Will you help me? He asked. I'll do better than that. Eleanor said, I'll marry you, and we'll do it together. They were married 3 months later, spring of 1883. Small ceremony. No guests beyond Martha and Thomas and the preacher. But standing beside Eleanor, speaking vows under the open Montana sky, Benjamin felt something he hadn't felt since Sarah died. He felt hope. Eleanor moved into the ranch, into the big empty house. She walked through each room, measured walls with her eyes, saw potential where Benjamin saw only space. We need more beds, she said, and books, lots of books, and we should paint the walls, make them warm. Children need warmth. We don't have any children yet. Yet, she smiled, but we will. They're out there, waiting, and we're going to find them. That winter they did, December 1883. Benjamin was riding the south boundary of the ranch, checking fence lines before the next storm hit. The day was gray, cold but not yet bitter. Snow threatened but hadn't started. He was a mile from the house when he saw her. A girl, maybe 10 years old, stumbling through the brush near an abandoned homestead. No coat, thin dress, bare feet leaving bloody prints in the frost. Benjamin's heart stopped. For one terrible moment, he was 20 years old again, standing in Harold's doorway, watching a little girl suffer, doing nothing. But he wasn't 20 anymore. He'd made a promise, and this time he would keep it. Benjamin dismounted before his horse fully stopped, ran toward the girl. She saw him coming and tried to run, but her legs gave out. She collapsed in the dead grass, curled into herself, waiting for whatever came next. I'm not going to hurt you. Benjamin's voice was gentle, controlled, the opposite of what he felt inside. Inside, he was screaming, raging at whoever had done this. My name is Benjamin Thornton. I live near here. You're safe now. The girl didn't respond, just stared at him with huge dark eyes, eyes that had seen too much, understood too much. Benjamin approached slowly, the way you approach a wounded animal, careful, respectful of fear. He took off his coat, heavy sheepskin lined with wool, wrapped it around her shoulders. The coat dwarfed her, made her look even smaller. Can you tell me your name? Silence. That's all right, you don't have to tell me anything, but I need to get you warm. Need to check if you're hurt. Is that okay? The girl nodded, barely. Benjamin lifted her. She weighed nothing. He could feel every bone through the thin dress, could feel her shivering. Not from cold, from shock, from whatever had happened before he found her. He put her on his horse, climbed up behind her, one arm around her waist to keep her steady. She didn't fight, didn't resist, just sat there like a doll, like something already broken. The ride home took 15 minutes, longest 15 minutes of Benjamin's life. He kept thinking about Sarah, about finding her too late, about the weight of a dead child in his arms. But this girl wasn't dead. Her heart beat against his arm. Her breath made small clouds in the cold air. She was alive. And this time Benjamin hadn't been too late. Eleanor was on the porch when they arrived. She took one look at the girl and went into motion. No questions, no hesitation, just action. Martha, get the tub filled. Warm water, not hot. Thomas, ride for the doctor. Now. They brought the girl inside, into the warmth. Eleanor peeled off the wet dress while Martha prepared the bath. Benjamin stood in the doorway, not sure if he should stay or go, not sure what his role was now that the rescue was done. Benjamin, Eleanor's voice cut through his uncertainty, go to town, get children's clothes, shoes, whatever they have, multiple sizes, and food, sweets, things a child would like. Yes, he turned to leave. Benjamin, he looked back. You did good, finding her, bringing her home. That was good. Something in his chest loosened, some knot he'd been carrying since Sarah died. I made a promise. I know, and you kept it. Now let's see if we can help her keep living. Benjamin rode to Copper Hollow, bought clothes, shoes in 3 sizes, hard candy and chocolate, a doll with a porcelain face. He didn't know if the girl would want a doll, didn't know if she was too old or too young or too damaged. But Sarah had loved dolls, and maybe that was reason enough. When he returned, the house smelled of soup and bread. Eleanor had the girl clean and dressed and sitting at the kitchen table. The girl was eating, slowly, as if she'd forgotten how and had to relearn, or as if she was afraid the food would be taken away. Her name is Grace, Eleanor said quietly. Grace Mitchell. She's 10 years old. Her parents died of plague 3 months ago. Her uncle took her in, then decided she was too much trouble. Drove her out into the wilderness yesterday and left her. Benjamin felt rage like ice in his veins. Where is he, Pa? Gone, left for California. Said he wanted a fresh start. Eleanor's jaw was tight. Far as I'm concerned, good riddance. Benjamin looked at Grace. She was eating bread and soup, not looking at them, not looking at anything, just existing in the careful way of someone who'd learned that existing quietly was the best way to survive. Grace, Benjamin sat down across from her, waited until she looked up. I want you to know something. What your uncle did was wrong. You weren't too much trouble. You weren't a burden. He was a coward and a fool, and his failure is not your failure. Do you understand? Grace stared at him. Then very slowly she shook her head. He said I was worthless, that nobody wanted me, that I should be grateful he took me as long as he did. He lied. How do you know? Because I want you. My wife wants you. We have a home with empty rooms and empty chairs, and we've been waiting for someone to fill them. If you'll stay, if you'll let us, we'd like that someone to be you. Grace's eyes filled with tears. Why? It was the same question Michael would ask 40 years later. Why would you do this? Why would you care? Benjamin's answer was the same then as it would be in 1920, because a long time ago I had a little sister named Sarah, and when she needed me, I wasn't brave enough to help her. She died in alone and scared, and I carry that every day. I can't save Sarah, but maybe I can save you. Maybe that's what all that pain was for. So I'd recognize you when I saw you. So I'd know to stop. So I'd know what mattered. Grace cried then, really cried. The kind of crying that comes from deep places, from wounds that haven't healed. Eleanor moved to her, held her, let her sob into her shoulder, and Benjamin sat at the table in the house he'd built, the house that had been too big and too empty. And he thought about Sarah, about promises, about how sometimes the worst things in our lives teach us the most important lessons. Grace lived. Over the next week she healed, her feet scarred but recovered. Her body gained weight. Her eyes lost some of that careful wariness. She smiled occasionally, laughed once, began to look like a child instead of a survivor. Eleanor was the one who suggested they make it official. Adopt her. Give her their name. Make her a Thornton. Are you sure? Benjamin asked. That's permanent. That's forever. That's the point, Eleanor said. Forever. A family. Not a charity case. Not a rescued orphan. A daughter. So they did. Filed papers. Appeared before a judge. Made it legal. Grace Mitchell became Grace Thornton. And for the first time since Sarah died, Benjamin felt like he'd done something right. That winter, Eleanor told him she was pregnant. Benjamin was terrified. He'd never been a father. Didn't know how. Worried he'd fail this child the way he'd failed Sarah. But Eleanor laughed at his fears. You've already been a father to Grace. You'll be a father to this baby. And you'll be good at it because you care enough to worry. The men who fail are the ones who think it's easy. The baby, a girl named Mary, was born in April 1884. Healthy, loud, perfect. And Grace loved her immediately. Wanted to help with everything. Feed her, rock her, sing to her. Grace, who'd been abandoned and left for dead, poured all her love into this tiny infant who shared no blood with her. Watching them, Benjamin understood something profound. Family wasn't about blood, it was about choice, about showing up, about loving someone because you decided to, not because genetics demanded it. That understanding would shape everything that followed. November 1885, 15 months after Mary was born. Eleanor went to town for supplies. Grace and Mary stayed home with Martha. Benjamin was working the north pasture with Thomas. It was an ordinary day, cold but clear, nothing special, nothing remarkable. When Benjamin came home for dinner, he found Eleanor in bed, fever, high and climbing. The doctor came, diagnosed scarlet fever, said to keep her cool, keep her hydrated, pray. They did all three. For 4 days they fought. Eleanor burned, raved, didn't recognize them, called for her own mother dead 20 years, called for children she'd never had, called for Benjamin, but didn't know him when he held her hand. On the 4th day she died, quietly, mid-morning. The fever broke just before the end. She opened her eyes, saw Benjamin, smiled. "Did we do good?" she whispered. "With Grace, with the house, did we do what we meant to do?" "Yes." Benjamin's voice cracked. "We did so good." "Then keep going, don't stop. There are more children, more Graces. Promise me you'll find them." "I promise." Eleanor closed her eyes, stopped breathing, was gone. Benjamin didn't cry. Not then, not at the funeral, not when they lowered her into the ground under the oak tree, not when Grace sobbed and Mary screamed for her mama, and the whole world felt like it was ending. He didn't cry because if he started, he'd never stop. And there were children depending on him. Grace needed him. Mary needed him. And somewhere out there, more children needed him. Children he'd promised Eleanor he'd find. So Benjamin swallowed his grief, buried it deep, and kept working. Mary was the hardest, 18 months old, too young to understand death, but old enough to know her mother was gone. She cried for Eleanor for weeks, reached for her at night, called for her in the morning. Benjamin held her, rocked her, whispered promises he didn't know if he could keep. "I'm here, Papa's here, you're not alone." It was Mary who finally broke through his grief. One morning she toddled to him, held up her arms, said simply, "Papa." Not asking for Eleanor, accepting him, choosing him. That's when Benjamin knew. He had to stay, not just for the promise, but for her, for the daughter who still needed a father. 3 months later, Grace got sick. The same fever, the same progression. Benjamin recognized it immediately, recognized the death sentence. But he fought anyway, brought in 3 doctors, tried every treatment, sat beside her bed for 5 days and nights, refused to sleep, refused to leave, refused to accept what was coming. Grace died on the 5th day. She was 13 years old. In her last moments, she was lucid, held Benjamin's hand, looked at him with Eleanor's wisdom. "Thank you for saving me, Papa. I love you." "I love you too, sweetheart. So much. Mama's waiting for me. She says it's okay. She says you did good." Grace smiled. She says, "Keep your promise." Then she was gone. Benjamin buried her beside Eleanor, under the oak tree. 2 graves, 2 women who taught him what love meant, what family meant, what purpose meant. He stood between those graves for a long time. Days blurred together. He didn't eat, barely slept. Martha brought him food he didn't touch. Thomas tried to get him to come inside. He refused. He was done. Finished. The universe had made its point. He'd tried to build something good, and it had been torn away. Tried to keep his promise and been punished for it. Maybe Harold had been right all those years ago. Maybe some things were just meant to be broken. On the 3rd day, Daniel found him. Daniel Hayes, 14 years old now. He'd arrived at the ranch 2 years ago when he was 12 with his sister Lily. Their parents had died in a fire. Benjamin had taken them in at Eleanor's insistence, loved them the way he'd loved Grace. Daniel stood beside the graves, quiet, respectful, finally spoke. "Mr. Thornton, sir, are you going to leave us?" Benjamin looked at him. "What?" Are you going to give up, sell the ranch, send us away like everyone else did? I? Benjamin stopped. He'd been thinking exactly that. Hadn't said it, hadn't admitted it, but Daniel knew. Because I understand if you do. Daniel's voice was steady. You lost too much, I get that. But I need to know. Because if you're going to leave, I need to prepare. Need to figure out how to take care of Lily. Need to make a plan. Benjamin stared at this boy. This child who'd already lost everything and was preparing to lose more. Who'd learned at 13 that adults couldn't be trusted. That promises didn't mean anything. That love was just something people said before they walked away. And Benjamin realized something. He could quit, could sell the ranch, could walk away from all of this. But if he did, he'd prove Daniel right. Prove that adults were all the same. Prove that love was temporary. Prove that his promise to Sarah, to Eleanor, to Grace meant nothing. Or he could stand up, keep going, show Daniel that some people stay, that some promises are kept, that love, real love, survives even grief. No, Benjamin's voice was rough. I'm not leaving. You're not. I made a promise to my sister, to my wife, to Grace, to you. I promised I wouldn't let children suffer, wouldn't let them be alone, and I meant it. Benjamin stood. His body ached, his heart ached, but he stood. Eleanor and Grace are gone, but you're here, Lily's here, Mary's here, and maybe that's the point. Maybe the promise isn't about the ones I lost, it's about the ones who are still here, the ones who still need me. Daniel's eyes were wet. So we can stay. You can stay forever if you want. This is your home, and I'm your father, maybe not by blood, but in every way that matters. Benjamin put his hand on Daniel's shoulder. And there will be more children who need a home, more brothers and sisters for you. Because this ranch, this family, it's bigger than just me. It's bigger than my grief. It's the promise I made, and I will keep it, no matter what. Daniel hugged him then, 13 years old and trying so hard to be strong, to be a man, but still just a boy who needed to know someone would stay. And Benjamin hugged him back, let himself feel it, the grief, the love, the terrible, beautiful weight of being needed. That night he went to Eleanor's grave one last time, knelt in the dirt, spoke to the darkness. I wanted to quit. You know that, wanted to walk away from all of it. Let someone else carry this. Let someone else keep the promise. He touched the headstone. But I can't, because Daniel's right. If I quit, I'm just another adult who failed them. Just another person who loved them until it got hard. And I won't be that. I won't be Harold. I won't be the man who let Sarah die. I'll be the man who stays, who fights, who keeps building even when it hurts. The wind blew through the oak leaves, soft and steady, almost like a voice, almost like approval. Benjamin stood, looked at the house, lights glowed in the windows. Martha would have dinner ready. Daniel and Lily and Mary would be waiting. Life was waiting. Purpose was waiting. He walked toward the house, toward the family that remained, toward the promise he would keep. Behind him under the oak tree, 3 graves stood in the darkness. Sarah, Eleanor, Grace, 3 women who taught him everything important. That cowardice had consequences. That love required courage. That some promises were worth dying for. But tonight Benjamin wasn't thinking about dying. He was thinking about living. About the children in his house. About the children still out there. About the family he would build from grief and determination and stubborn hope. He was thinking about tomorrow, and all the tomorrows after that, and how each one would be another day of keeping his promise, another day of proving that love was stronger than loss, another day of showing that one man, one house, one choice at a time, you could change the world. The snow began to fall, soft and silent, the way it always falls in Montana when something is beginning. The years after Eleanor and Grace's deaths were the hardest of Benjamin's life. Not because of the work, though there was plenty of that, not because of the loneliness, though the bed felt vast and empty every night, but because every day required a choice. Every morning he woke up and decided again to keep going, to keep the promise, to stay. Some days that choice was easy. Daniel would smile at breakfast, Lily would sing while doing chores, Mary would call him Papa and mean it. Those days, Benjamin felt like maybe he was doing something right, like maybe Eleanor and Grace were watching and approving. Other days were harder, days when he found Grace's drawings in a forgotten drawer, days when he passed Eleanor's grave and remembered how she'd looked at him on their wedding day, days when the house felt too big and too quiet, and he wondered what the point was. Why keep fighting? Why keep building? Why not just let it all go? But then he'd see Daniel teaching Lily to ride, or Mary laughing at something Martha said, or he'd remember the look in Grace's eyes when she'd said, "Thank you for saving me." And he'd know the point. The point was them. The point was always them. By spring of 1886, the ranch had settled into a rhythm. Martha ran the house with fierce efficiency. Thomas managed the cattle and horses with quiet competence. Daniel, now 14, worked alongside Thomas, learning everything. Lily, 10, helped Martha with cooking and cleaning and looking after Mary, who was 2 and into everything. They were a family, strange and cobbled together and born from tragedy, but a family nonetheless. That's when Isaac arrived. Benjamin found him in the barn one morning in June. A boy, maybe 11 or 12, sleeping in the hayloft, thin as a rail, clothes more patches than cloth, face dirty and bruised. But it was his eyes that stopped Benjamin cold. They held the same wariness Grace's had held, the same careful calculation of a child who'd learned that adults were dangerous. "Hey there," Benjamin kept his voice soft, non-threatening. "You picked a good spot. Hay's warm this time of year." The boy scrambled backward, pressed against the wall. "I ain't stealing nothing. Just needed a place to sleep. I'll leave. Right now, you won't see me again." "I'm not worried about stealing. What's your name?" The boy hesitated. Then, as if the truth didn't matter anymore, "Isaac Carter." Benjamin went still. He knew that name. Everyone in the territory knew that name. Thomas Carter had been hanged 3 months ago in Copper Hollow. Horse thief, caught red-handed with 3 stolen mares. The trial lasted 1 day. The execution came 2 days later, and his son had been at the hanging, had watched his father die. "You're Thomas Carter's boy." Isaac's face hardened. "Yeah, so you're gonna throw me out, tell me I'm bad blood. That's what everyone else says. Apple don't fall far from the tree. I'm just a thief's son. Probably grow up to be a thief too, if I grow up at all." Benjamin climbed up into the loft, sat down across from Isaac. The boy tensed, ready to run, but Benjamin just leaned back against the hay bales. "My stepfather used to beat my little sister. I watched him do it. Didn't stop him. She ran away in a blizzard and froze to death. I was 20 years old, strong enough to fight him, but I didn't. I was too scared." Benjamin looked at Isaac. "You think that makes me a coward forever? Think I'm always going to be the man who let his sister die?" Isaac didn't answer, just stared. "Point is, son, we're not defined by what our parents did or what we failed to do in the past. We're defined by what we choose to do now. Your father made bad choices, but those are his choices, not yours. You get to decide who you are. And if you decide you're just a thief's son, then yeah, probably you'll end up a thief. But if you decide you're something more, something better, then that's what you'll be. You don't know me, don't know what I've done. You're right, I don't. But I know you're 11 years old and sleeping in a barn because you got nowhere else to go. I know your father was hanged, and nobody wanted the son of a criminal. I know you've probably been told 100 times that you're worthless, that you're bad, that you're doomed." Benjamin leaned forward. "And I'm here to tell you that's all lies. You're a boy, just a boy. And boys deserve a chance, deserve a home, deserve someone who sees them as more than their worst moment or their father's crimes." Isaac's jaw trembled. "Why do you care?" "Because I made a promise to save kids who need saving, and you look like you need it pretty bad. I don't need charity." "Good, because I'm not offering charity. I'm offering work. Room and board in exchange for honest labor. You help around the ranch, feed animals, mend fences, learn skills. And in return, you get a bed and meals, and maybe if you stick around long enough, something that looks like family." Isaac was quiet for a long moment. Benjamin could see him thinking, weighing options, calculating risks. Finally, he spoke. "What if I steal from you? What if I'm as bad as they say? Then I guess I'll deal with it when it happens. But I'm betting you won't. I'm betting you're better than people give you credit for. and I'm willing to take that bet. Isaac wiped his eyes with his sleeve. I got nowhere else to go. Then stay here for as long as you need. That's how Isaac became a Thornton, slowly, carefully, like a wild animal learning to trust. The first weeks were hard. Isaac flinched when anyone moved too fast, hoarded food under his mattress, woke screaming from nightmares about his father's hanging. But Daniel befriended him, showed him how to care for horses, never mentioned Isaac's father, never made him feel different. And gradually, day by day, Isaac began to relax, to smile, to act like a child instead of a survivor. 3 months after Isaac arrived, he came to Benjamin in the barn. "Mr. Thornton, sir, I need to tell you something." "All right. I did steal before I came here. Stole bread from the bakery, stole a blanket from a wagon. I was hungry and cold, and I didn't know what else to do." Isaac's voice shook. "But I haven't stolen nothing since I got here, not one thing. And I won't, I promise, but I wanted you to know. Wanted to be honest." Benjamin looked at this boy, this child who'd watched his father hang for theft and was so afraid of becoming him that he confessed to stealing bread. "Isaac, listen to me. You took food because you were starving. That's not theft, that's survival. Your father stole horses to sell, that's different. And the fact that you understand the difference, the fact that it bothers you, tells me everything I need to know about who you really are. You're not mad. I'm not mad, I'm proud. Takes courage to confess, takes strength to change. You're doing both." Isaac hugged him then, quick and fierce, then ran off before Benjamin could respond. But Benjamin didn't need a response. The hug was enough. That summer, another child came, found wandering the main road by a traveling merchant. A girl 7 years old. She couldn't speak, couldn't remember her name, couldn't remember anything. The doctor called it dissociative amnesia, trauma so deep the mind had erased itself as protection. The merchant brought her to Thornton Creek because everyone knew Benjamin took in children nobody else wanted. Benjamin named her Sophie, after the saint of wisdom. If she can't remember who she was, he said, she gets to choose who she becomes. Sophie didn't speak for 3 months. Then one morning she asked for paper and pencils, and she drew. Beautiful, haunting pictures. The house, the children, the oak tree. Grace's old drawings come to life again. By the time she was 9, Sophie's memories had partially returned. Fragments, a fire, a woman screaming, but the details stayed buried, and Sophie decided she didn't need them. "I'm Sophie Thornton," she told Benjamin. "That's all I need to be." That fall, another child arrived. James Brooks, 9 years old, half Cherokee on his mother's side. White father who'd abandoned them both when James was born. Mother had died of pneumonia the previous winter, and James had spent the last 6 months being passed between the Cherokee village and the white settlement belonging to neither. Thomas found him sleeping in the stable, brought him to Benjamin. Says his name is Jamie. Says his mama was Red Sky Woman. Father was some trapper named Brooks who lit out before the baby came. Boy's been living rough since his mama died. Cherokee don't want him because he's half white. White folks don't want him because he's half Cherokee. Benjamin looked at Jamie, small for 9, dark hair, brown skin, eyes that held too much knowledge for his years. "Jamie, that's short for James." The boy nodded. "Well, James, I'm Benjamin Thornton. This is my ranch, and I got a question for you. Can you work?" "Yes, sir." "Can you follow rules?" "Yes, sir." "Can you be respectful to the other children and the adults here?" "Yes, sir." "Then I don't care if you're Cherokee or white or anything else. You need a home, I got one. You want to stay, you can stay. Simple as that." Jamie's eyes widened. "That's it. You don't care about my blood. Blood's just blood. What matters is what you do with it. Your mama was Cherokee, that's a gift. Your father was white, that's a fact. You're both, and that makes you special. Not cursed, special, and anyone who says different is a fool." Jamie stayed, and brought with him knowledge that transformed the ranch. He taught Daniel and Isaac how to track game, showed them which plants were edible, which were medicinal, explained weather patterns and animal behavior, skills his mother had taught him before she died. But more than skills, Jamie brought a bridge. When ranchers had trouble with Cherokee neighbors, Benjamin sent Jamie to mediate. When Cherokee needed to trade, they came to the ranch because Jamie was there. He became essential, valuable. No longer the half-breed nobody wanted, but the bridge everyone needed. The house was filling up. 6 people became 7. 7 became 8. The empty rooms Benjamin had built began to hold life. Laughter echoed in the hallways. Dinner table conversations were loud and chaotic and perfect. And then winter came again. December 1889, 7 years after Benjamin had found Grace. He was riding the south boundary, checking fence lines before the storm hit. Cold day, gray sky, snow threatening but not yet falling. Benjamin was thinking about nothing in particular, just the rhythm of the horse, the sound of leather creaking, the way his breath made clouds in the frozen air. Then he saw her, another girl, like Grace 7 years ago. But this time Benjamin didn't hesitate, didn't freeze. The promise had changed him. He was off his horse before conscious thought, running, reaching, saving. For a moment, Benjamin was 20 years old again, finding Sarah. Too late, always too late, but this time he wasn't too late. This time he acted. He dismounted, ran to her. She collapsed when she saw him, just folded onto herself like all her strings had been cut. "I got you." Benjamin pulled off his coat, wrapped it around her. "You're safe, I got you." The girl looked up at him, eyes unfocused, lips blue. He said I was dead weight, said nobody wanted me, said I should just die in the snow and make everyone's life easier. Sarah's words, the same words Harold had used. Dead weight. Benjamin felt rage like fire in his blood, but his voice stayed gentle. He lied. "You're not dead weight. You're a child, and children are precious. You hear me, precious? Who are you?" "My name is Benjamin Thornton, and I'm taking you home." He put her on his horse, held her against his chest as they rode. She was barely conscious, mumbling about the cold, about being worthless, about how sorry she was for existing. Benjamin held her tighter. "Don't be sorry, never be sorry for existing. The world's a better place with you in it." At the ranch, Martha and Daniel took over. Warm bath, dry clothes, hot soup. The girl's name was Abigail Winters, Abby for short. Her parents had died 3 years ago. She'd been passed between relatives, each one keeping her for a while, then passing her along. The last one, a woman named Constance Barlow, had driven her out into the wilderness and left her to die. Abby survived, barely. Her feet were badly frostbitten. 2 toes would never fully recover. But she lived, and slowly over weeks and months, she began to heal. What struck Benjamin most was her fierce protective instinct. The moment she could walk, she started helping with the younger children. Mary, now 5, became her shadow. Lily, 13, became her friend. And when the next child arrived, Abby was the one who helped him adjust. That child was Matthew, Abby's younger brother, 6 years old. They'd been separated 3 years ago after their parents died. Both believed the other was dead. The orphanage had lied to each of them, said the other had been adopted, that they'd never see each other again. But a preacher named Marcus Cole had heard Matthew asking about a sister named Abby, had tracked records through 3 orphanages, had found the trail that led to Thornton Creek Ranch. And in August 1890, he brought Matthew home. The reunion broke everyone who witnessed it. Abby saw her brother get out of the wagon, stood frozen, couldn't believe it was real. Matthew saw her and screamed her name. Ran, Abby ran. They collided in the middle of the yard, held each other, sobbed. Benjamin watched from the porch. Beside him, Daniel said quietly, "That's what you did, Mr. Thornton. You made that happen. You gave them back their family." But Benjamin shook his head. "I just opened the door. They did the rest." By fall of 1890, the ranch housed 10 children, 8 orphans plus Mary, ages ranging from 6 to 16. The house was full. The table was full. Life was full. And that's when Nathaniel Crawford made his move. Crawford owned the neighboring ranch. Bigger spread, more cattle, older family name. But his ranch was failing. Poor management, gambling debts, bad investments. The bank was threatening foreclosure, and the only thing that could save him was buying Thornton Creek Ranch. The land, the water rights, the access to the mountain passes. With it, he could consolidate operations, cut costs, save his legacy. Without it, he lost everything. Crawford came to Benjamin in October, rode up to the house, dismounted without invitation, stood on the porch like he owned it. Thornton, we need to talk. Benjamin came outside, didn't invite Crawford in. Talk then. I'm prepared to offer you $50,000 for your land. That's more than fair, more than you'd get from anyone else. I'm not selling. Don't be a fool, that's a fortune. Maybe, but this isn't about money. This is home. For me and for 10 children who got nowhere else to go. So no, I'm not selling. Crawford's face darkened. Those children, that's what this is about. You're running some kind of orphanage out here. No oversight, no regulation. It's not right. Those children are my family, legally adopted. I got papers for each one, so it's not an orphanage. It's a home, and it's none of your business. Everything in this valley is my business. My family built this territory. We have a legacy to protect, and I won't let some upstart with a savior complex destroy that. Benjamin's voice went cold. Get off my land. This isn't over. Yes, it is. Leave. Now. Crawford left, but his words hung in the air like smoke. This isn't over. He was right. Over the next weeks, rumors started. Whispers in town, questions at the general store, concerns voiced at church. Always the same theme. Benjamin Thornton and those children. What's really happening out there? Why would a man take in so many orphans? What's his real motivation? The gossip was quiet at first, easy to ignore, but it grew, spread, until the sheriff came calling. Sheriff Dalton was a fair man. He'd known Benjamin for years, respected him, but he had a job to do. Ben, I got to ask some questions. People are concerned. What people? Crawford's been making noise, says you're running an unlicensed operation, says there's no oversight, says those kids might be in danger. Benjamin felt his jaw tighten. Those kids are safer here than anywhere else they've been. You want to see? Come on in. Look around, talk to them. See for yourself. Dalton did, spent 2 hours at the ranch, talked to each child, inspected the house, reviewed Benjamin's records. At the end, he shook Benjamin's head. I see nothing wrong here. Kids are well-fed, well-clothed, happy. You got legal papers for each one. As far as I can tell, you're doing good work. Tell Crawford that. I will. But Ben, be careful. Crawford's not the kind to give up easy. He wants your land, and he'll find a way to get it. 2 weeks later, Crawford escalated. He called a town meeting, posted notices, made it sound official. Discussion of child welfare concerns in our community. 50 people showed up, most out of curiosity, some out of genuine concern, a few out of support for Crawford. Benjamin attended, brought Daniel and Abby, left the younger children at home with Martha and Thomas. Crawford stood at the front of the church, presented his case like a prosecutor. Friends, I'm not here to attack Benjamin Thornton. I'm sure he means well, but good intentions aren't enough. He's collected 8 orphan children. 8. Living in one house. One man, no wife, no family, no oversight. He claims they're adopted. But adoption papers don't guarantee safety. They don't guarantee proper care. Murmurs in the crowd, some nodding. Crawford continued, I'm asking simple questions. Who checks on these children? Who ensures they're being educated? Who makes sure they're not being abused? Who holds Thornton accountable? More murmurs, louder now. Benjamin stood. I'll answer those questions. The children are checked by Doc Henderson every 3 months. Medical records available on request. They're educated by Eleanor's old teaching materials and by a tutor who comes twice a week. Verification available. They're not abused. They're loved. And I'm accountable to the law, to the community, and to God. That enough for you, Crawford? Words are easy. Proof is harder. Then come see for yourself, all of you. Benjamin looked around the room. Open invitation. Come to the ranch. Meet the children. See how they live. Judge for yourselves. I got nothing to hide. The crowd shifted. Uncertainty replaced certainty. Crawford's narrative was cracking. But then Crawford played his card. Touching offer, Thornton. But I've done some research. These children you have taken in, do they have any living relatives? Any family who might want them back? Because from what I understand, some of them might have been taken without proper legal authorization. Benjamin felt ice in his stomach. He'd been careful, filed papers, done everything legally, but some of the adoptions had been rushed. Some of the children had come from situations where family couldn't be located, or wouldn't respond, or had explicitly abandoned them. The law was murky, and Crawford knew it. Every child in my home is there legally, papers filed, judge approved. And for all of them, you're certain. Because if even one of those adoptions is questionable, that makes the whole operation questionable, makes you questionable. The crowd was turning. Benjamin could feel it. Fear was spreading. What if Crawford was right? What if there was something improper? What if they'd all been fooled? That's when Abby stood up. 11 years old, small, but her voice carried. Mr. Crawford asked what happens behind closed doors at Thornton Creek Ranch. I'll tell you. Behind closed doors, I learned to walk again after my feet froze. Behind closed doors, Daniel cries sometimes because he watched his parents burn. Behind closed doors, Isaac has nightmares about his father's hanging. Behind closed doors, Mr. Thornton sits with us, holds us when we're scared, tells us we're worth something, tells us we matter. She held up her hands, the scars from frostbite visible. These scars are from the woman who left me to die in the snow. She called me dead weight. Dead. Said nobody wanted me. Mr. Thornton found me, saved me, gave me a home. Not because he had to, not because someone paid him, but because he promised his sister he'd never let another child die alone. Abby looked directly at Crawford. You want to know what's happening at that ranch? Love is happening. Family is happening. Kids who had nothing are getting everything. And if you try to take that away, you're not protecting children. You're destroying them. The room erupted. Some people stood, applauded. Others argued, shouted. The meeting dissolved into chaos. Sheriff Dalton had to restore order. Finally, he spoke. Folks, I've investigated these claims. I've seen the ranch, talked to the children, reviewed the papers, and I see no evidence of wrongdoing. Benjamin Thornton is providing care for children who would otherwise be in institutions or dead. That's not a crime. That's charity. He looked at Crawford. Now, if you have specific evidence of abuse or negligence, bring it to me. Otherwise, this matter is closed. Crawford's face went red. He'd lost. Publicly. And men like Crawford don't forget that kind of humiliation. That night, riding back to the ranch, Daniel said, he's going to try something else. Men like that don't give up. Benjamin knew he was right, but he didn't know what Crawford would do. Didn't know how far the man would go. He found out 2 weeks later. November 1890, cold morning, Sophie Reed, the girl who'd come to them with amnesia 2 years ago, was missing. Her bed was empty, window forced open from the outside, boot prints in the frost. Adult-sized. Martha found it first. Screamed for Benjamin. He came running, saw the empty bed, the open window, and he knew with terrible certainty. Crawford. Benjamin organized immediately. Thomas and Daniel would search the woods. Jamie would track. Isaac would ride for the sheriff. And Benjamin would do what needed to be done. I'm coming with you. Abby appeared beside him. 11 now, nearly 12. Fierce and determined. No, too dangerous. She's my sister. I'm coming. Benjamin looked at this girl, this child who'd survived abandonment and frostbite and loss, who'd stood up to Crawford in front of 50 people, who'd earned the right to fight for her family. All right, but you follow my orders, no arguments. Yes, sir. Jamie picked up the trail immediately. 3 horses, 2 men, 1 small rider, headed northwest, toward Crawford land. They rode hard. Benjamin, Thomas, Daniel, Jamie, and Abby, armed and angry and terrified. Sophie was 9 years old, fragile, still recovering from her trauma. If Crawford hurt her, if he scared her, the damage might be irreversible. They reached Crawford's ranch at dusk, saw Sophie through the barn window, sitting on a hay bale, 2 men guarding her. She was crying, not hurt physically, but terrified. Benjamin's rage was ice, cold and sharp and absolute. He turned to his group. Daniel, you and Jamie create a distraction. Anything that draws those men away from Sophie. Thomas, you cover the exit with your rifle. Make sure nobody runs. Abby, you come with me. When I say go, you grab Sophie and run. Don't stop. Don't look back. Understand? They all nodded. The plan worked perfectly. Daniel started a small fire in a haystack on the opposite side of the barn. The guards ran to put it out. Benjamin and Abby slipped inside, found Sophie, Abby grabbed her hand. It's okay, we got you, let's go. They were almost to the door when Crawford appeared, shotgun in hand, face twisted with desperation. Thought you could just walk on my land, Thornton? Benjamin stepped between Crawford and the girls. Let them go, Nathaniel. This is between us. Everything I built is falling apart because of you. My ranch, my reputation, my family legacy. And you want me to just let you walk away? This isn't about me. This is about you making bad choices. Your ranch is failing because you mismanaged it. Your reputation is damaged because you kidnapped a child. Your legacy is your responsibility, not mine. Crawford raised the shotgun, hands shaking. I won't let you destroy me. I'm not destroying you, you're doing that yourself. Thomas appeared behind Crawford, rifle aimed. Drop it, Crawford. For a moment, everything hung in balance. Crawford could fire. Thomas would fire back. People would die. It could all end here, Diam. Then Crawford's shoulders sagged. The shotgun lowered. He'd lost. Finally. Completely. And he knew it. Sheriff Dalton arrived 10 minutes later. Martha had ridden for help the moment they'd left. Crawford was arrested. His hired men confessed. The kidnapping was proven. Crawford would spend the next 15 years in territorial prison. As they led him away, Crawford looked at Benjamin. This isn't over. Even from prison, I'll find a way. You can't protect them forever. Benjamin didn't respond, just gathered the children, took them home. That night, he sat on the porch with Sophie. She was quiet, processing. Finally, she spoke. Why did he take me? Because he wanted my land. Thought if he had you, I'd trade. Would you have? Benjamin looked at her. Yes, without hesitation. This land is just dirt. You're my daughter. There's no comparison. Sophie leaned against him. I was so scared. I know, but you're safe now, and you'll stay safe, I promise. How can you promise that bad things keep happening? Bad things do happen. That's life, but you know what else happens? Good things, love, family, people showing up when it matters. And as long as I'm breathing, I'll show up for you, for all of you. That's my promise. Sophie was quiet for a moment. Then, I remember. Remember what my past, my family. It came back while I was in that barn. My mother died when I was 6. My father blamed me. Said if I hadn't been born, she'd still be alive. He left me at an orphanage. Told them I was nameless. That I didn't deserve a name. Tears ran down her face. So they called me Sophie, after the saint. Said even nameless children deserve saints watching over them. Benjamin pulled her close. You have a name now, Sophie Thornton, and you have a family. And nothing, not Crawford, not your past, not anything will take that away. The years that followed were quieter. Crawford was in prison. The town had seen the truth. The children were safe. The ranch prospered. More children came. Not many, 1 or 2 a year, but enough to keep the promise alive. Enough to fill the house with life and noise and love. By 1895, 15 years after Sarah's death, Benjamin was 35 years old. The ranch was successful. The children were thriving. Daniel was 23, married with a son of his own. Isaac was training horses for the U.S. Cavalry. Jamie was working as a territorial scout. Abby was 16 and running the household with Martha. The younger children were in school learning growing. Benjamin should have felt proud, accomplished, at peace. But mostly he just felt tired. The work was catching up. 16-hour days for 15 years. Sleeping poorly, eating irregularly, pushing himself beyond limits. His back ached constantly. His hands were scarred from 1,000 cuts and burns, and his chest hurt sometimes. A tightness that came and went but seemed to come more often lately. The doctor told him to slow down. Benjamin ignored him. There was too much to do, too many children depending on him. Too much promise left to keep. Then in autumn of 1895, he collapsed. He was working in the barn, lifting hay bales. Suddenly his chest seized. Pain like fire spread through his left arm. His vision blurred. He fell, hit the ground hard, couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Just pain and fear, and the certainty that this was how it ended. Daniel found him, shouted for help. They carried Benjamin to the house, sent for the doctor, waited. Dr. Henderson examined him. grim-faced, finally spoke. Heart attack, not severe, but a warning. Your heart is damaged, Ben. Weakened. You keep pushing like this, the next one will kill you. How long? If you rest, maybe 5 years, maybe 10. If you don't rest, months. Benjamin stared at the ceiling. I can't rest. The ranch needs me. The children need me. The children need you alive. A living father who does less is better than a dead hero who did too much. But Benjamin didn't know how to do less, didn't know how to slow down. His entire adult life had been defined by pushing forward, by doing more, by being enough for everyone who needed him. Abby understood. She came to his room that night, sat beside his bed. Papa, you need to let us help more. Daniel can run operations. I can handle the house. The younger kids can do more chores. You can't carry everything alone. That's my job, to carry it. No, your job is to be here, to be alive, to watch us grow up, to meet your grandchildren, to see what all this becomes. She took his hand. We need you, not your work. You, the man who saved us, the man who loved us. That's who we need, not the man who works himself to death trying to prove he's worthy. Those words hit hard, because she was right. Benjamin had been trying to earn his redemption, to work off the guilt of Sarah's death, to prove he deserved Eleanor and Grace's sacrifice. But maybe that wasn't the point. Maybe the point was just to be, to live, to love, and let that be enough. All right, he said quietly. All right, I'll slow down. And he tried. He really did. Delegated more. Let Daniel make decisions. Let Abby run the house. Spent more time with the children, less time working, more time living. It was harder than he expected, harder than physical labor. Sitting still felt wrong. Watching others work felt like failure. But gradually he learned that his value wasn't in what he could do, but in who he was, what he represented, the symbol he'd become. By 1899, Crawford had been released from prison. 8 years served, good behavior, a broken man who'd lost everything. Benjamin heard he was back and waited. Wondered if Crawford would come for revenge, would try again to take what wasn't his. Wondered if the peace they'd built was about to shatter. Crawford came in autumn, on foot, no horse, wearing clothes that had seen better days. He looked 20 years older. Prison had hollowed him out. Benjamin met him at the gate, hand on his rifle. But Crawford raised his hands. I'm not here for trouble, Thornton. I'm here to apologize. 8 years in prison, now you want to apologize. 8 years gave me time to think about what I did, why I did it. I told myself I was protecting my legacy, fighting for what was mine. But the truth is I was just scared. Scared of losing. Scared of being nothing. Scared that without the land and the name, I had no value. Crawford looked at the ranch, at the children playing in the yard, at the life that had continued without him. You built something I never could. Not a ranch, a family. And I hated you for it, because it showed me what I'd wasted my life pursuing. I chased land and money and legacy. You built love, and I couldn't stand seeing that what I dismissed as weakness was actually strength. Benjamin studied him, looking for deception, for manipulation, but all he saw was regret. Real heavy regret. What do you want, Nathaniel? A job, nothing fancy. I'll chop wood, mend fences. Whatever you need, I don't want pay. Just food and a place to sleep. I need work, need purpose, need to be something other than the man who kidnapped a child and went to prison. It was a test. Benjamin knew that, a test of his own principles. He'd preached forgiveness, preached second chances, told his children that people could change. Now Crawford was asking him to prove it. All right, you can work here, but understand this. You hurt any of these children, you even look at them wrong, and I'll finish what the law started. Clear, clear. Crawford worked hard, didn't complain, didn't make trouble. The children were wary at first, especially Sophie, but slowly they saw the change, saw that Crawford was genuinely different, genuinely trying to atone. 6 months later, Crawford saved Mary's life. She was 15, riding one of the horses. The animal spooked, reared. Mary fell. The horse's hooves came down, would have crushed her skull. But Crawford was there, grabbed the horse's bridle, pulled it back, took a kick to the ribs that broke 3 bones. But Mary was safe. After that, the family accepted him, not as family, but as something close. A redeemed man, proof that change was possible, that even the worst of us could become better. Benjamin watched this transformation with wonder and understood something profound. His promise to Sarah had been about saving children. But maybe it was about more than that. Maybe it was about saving anyone who needed it, about showing that love and second chances and forgiveness could transform not just individuals, but entire communities. The 20th century arrived. Benjamin was 40 years old. His heart was weak but holding. His body was tired but functional, and his family was strong. Daniel had 3 children now. Isaac was married with 2 sons. Abby remained unmarried, devoted to the ranch and the children. The younger ones were growing, learning, preparing to go out into the world. Benjamin sat on the porch most evenings, watching the sun set over the mountains, thinking about Eleanor and Grace, about Sarah, about all the children who'd passed through these doors, about the promise he'd kept. He was tired, so tired, but it was the good kind of tired, the kind that comes from a life well lived, from promises kept, from love given freely. He didn't know then that he had 20 more years ahead of him, 20 more years of building, of loving, of showing the world that family was what you made it, that redemption was possible, that one man, one choice at a time could change everything. All he knew was that tonight, sitting on his porch with his family around him, he was content. And for a man who'd started with so much guilt and loss, contentment felt like victory. The battle wasn't over. It would never truly be over. There would always be more children who needed saving, more Crawfords to face, more challenges to overcome. But tonight, in this moment, they had won, and that was enough. The ranch had changed, not in structure, but in spirit. What had been a desperate rescue operation had become something stable, permanent, a model for others to follow. Benjamin was 40 now. The heart attack of 1895 had aged him, slowed him, but not stopped him. He walked with a slight limp, tired easier, but his mind stayed sharp. His purpose stayed clear. The children had grown. Daniel was 28, father of 3. Isaac ran the horse training program. Jamie bridged 2 communities with increasing success. Abby, 21, had become the ranch's true administrator, and the younger children continued to arrive 1 or 2 a year, adding to the legacy. Crawford, now 60, had earned his place. No longer the enemy, but not quite family either. Something in between. A testament to redemption. A warning about pride. The 20th century arrived with promise, and with challenges no one could foresee. The new century brought changes Benjamin could never have imagined. The Montana Territory became a state. Towns grew into cities. Railways cut through the wilderness. Automobiles appeared on roads that had only known horses. The world was transforming, modernizing, leaving behind the rough frontier days that had shaped Benjamin's youth. But some things remained constant. Children still needed homes, families still needed building, and promises still needed keeping. By 1905, Thornton Creek Ranch had become something larger than Benjamin had ever intended. It wasn't just a home anymore. It was an institution, a model. Other ranches across Montana and neighboring states began taking in orphans, inspired by what Benjamin had built. Churches asked him to speak. Newspapers wrote articles. The governor visited twice. Benjamin hated the attention. He wasn't trying to be famous, wasn't trying to start a movement. He was just keeping a promise to his dead sister. But Daniel convinced him the attention served a purpose. Papa, every article written about us is another child who gets noticed. Another family who decides to help. You started something. Now let it grow. So Benjamin tolerated the visitors and the reporters and the well-meaning people who wanted to study his methods. But he never forgot what this was really about. Not publicity, not recognition, just love, just family, just keeping his word. That summer, they held the first reunion. All the children who'd passed through Thornton Creek Ranch were invited to return. 32 people came, some with spouses, some with children of their own. They filled the house and yard with laughter and stories and the kind of joy that comes from shared history. Benjamin watched Daniel's 3 children play with Isaac's 2 sons. Watched Abby, now 26, teach a group of teenage girls how to bake bread. Watched Crawford, 60 years old and white-haired, sit quietly on the porch, finally at peace. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, Benjamin walked to the three graves under the oak tree. Sarah, Eleanor, Grace. He knelt on the grass, something his bad knees protested, but his heart demanded. You should see it. He spoke to the darkness, to the ghosts, to the memory of love. Everything we talked about, Eleanor. Everything we hoped for. It's real. 32 children have come through here. 32 lives changed. And they're changing more lives. Daniel's teaching his sons what I taught him. Isaac's training horses and training boys to be men. Abby's running this place better than I ever could. It's growing, spreading, becoming something bigger than us. The wind moved through the oak leaves, soft and steady, almost like breathing. I'm tired, Benjamin admitted. So tired. My heart's not good. Doc says I got maybe 5 years, maybe less, but I'm not afraid because I kept my promise. To all three of you, I saved them, as many as I could, and they're going to save more. That's legacy. That's what matters. He stood slowly, joints creaking, walked back to the house. Inside, Daniel sat at the kitchen table, going over account books. Everything all right, Papa? Everything's fine. Better than fine. I was just telling your mother and sisters about the reunion. Daniel smiled, didn't question the statement, didn't point out that Eleanor and Grace had been dead for 20 years. He understood. Some conversations transcended death. The years continued their relentless march. 1906, 1907, 1908. More children arrived, not as many as in the early days. The orphan trains from the east had slowed. More institutions existed now, more official channels, but there were still children who fell through the cracks, still ones nobody wanted. And Thornton Creek Ranch's doors remained open. In 1910, Benjamin suffered another heart attack, worse than the first. He was 50 years old and the doctor's prognosis was grim. You've pushed too hard for too long, Ben. Your heart's giving out. Could be months, could be a year, but not much more than that. Benjamin lay in bed for 3 months, frustrated, angry, helpless. His body had always been strong, had always obeyed his will. Now it betrayed him, made him dependent, made him watch while others did the work he should be doing. Matt, now 25, stepped into the gap. Quiet like Benjamin, strong like Eleanor. He ran the ranch with steady competence, made decisions without asking permission, proved he was ready to lead. One evening, Matt came to Benjamin's room, sat in the chair beside the bed. Papa, we need to talk about succession. I'm not dead yet. I know, but you will be eventually. We all will. And this place needs to survive you, needs a plan. Benjamin wanted to argue, wanted to say he'd handle it when the time came, but he was too tired for denial. What do you propose? We make it official. Legal documents, partnership structure. You, me, Daniel, Abby as primary owners. Then a board of the older children to make decisions together. No single person in charge. No king. Just family working together. It was brilliant, and it terrified Benjamin because it meant admitting he was mortal. Admitting his time was limited. Admitting the ranch would continue without him. But it also meant his work wouldn't die with him. Meant the promise would outlive his ability to keep it personally. All right, draw up the papers. We'll do it legal. They filed the documents in November 1910. Thornton Creek Ranch became Thornton Creek Family Foundation. Nonprofit, perpetual, designed to survive generations. Benjamin's health improved enough that winter that he could walk again. Work a little, resume some normalcy. But everyone knew the reprieve was temporary. The heart attack had been a warning. The next one would likely be the end. Then the Great War came. 1914, Europe exploded into violence. By 1917, America had joined, and 3 boys from Thornton Creek Ranch enlisted. Benjamin's grandson, Daniel's oldest son, was 18. 2 other adopted boys were 17 and 19. They volunteered together. Benjamin tried to stop them, argued, pleaded. I saved you from one kind of death. Don't run toward another. But they went anyway. Young men convinced they were invincible, convinced it would be adventure, convinced they'd be home by Christmas. The war was hell. Benjamin followed news obsessively, read casualty lists, waited for telegrams he hoped would never come. Aged 10 years and 2, all 3 boys survived. But they came home changed, hollow-eyed, quick to startle, haunted by things they wouldn't discuss. What we'd later call shell shock, what would eventually be named PTSD. But in 1918, there was no name for it. Just damaged boys trying to remember how to be human. Benjamin recognized the wounds. They were different from abandonment trauma, different from abuse trauma, but trauma nonetheless. And he knew how to help. Patience, work, purpose, love. The same tools that had healed Grace and Abby and Isaac and all the others. It took 2 years. 2 years of nightmares and flashbacks and rage. 2 years of Benjamin sitting up with boys who couldn't sleep, talking them through panic attacks, giving them work to do with their hands when their minds wouldn't settle, teaching them that surviving wasn't the same as living, that they could come back from this, that they were still worthy of peace. By 1920, all 3 had recovered, as much as any soldier recovers from war. They weren't the same boys who'd left, but they were men, whole men, functional men, men who understood darkness but chose light anyway. Benjamin was 60 by then. His heart was failing in earnest now. The doctor's visits were weekly, then daily. Everyone knew this was the end, not weeks away, days. December 15, 1920. Michael arrived, Daniel's youngest son, 12 years old, serious and thoughtful. He'd asked to stay with his grandfather, to sit vigil, to listen. Benjamin had been drifting in and out of consciousness. The pain medication kept him foggy. But when Michael arrived, something clarified. Some final reserve of strength gathered. Because he had one more story to tell, one more lesson to teach, one more promise to pass down. That's when he began. That's where this story started. Benjamin in bed, Michael beside him, and 40 years of history waiting to be spoken. Now, as the story caught up to itself, as the past merged with present, Michael understood why his grandfather had built this place, why he'd fought so hard, why he'd never given up. Grandpa, Michael's voice was thick with tears. You did it. You kept your promise. You saved them all. Benjamin smiled, weak but genuine. Not all, never all. There's always more. Always children who need homes. Always promises that need keeping. That's why I'm telling you this, Michael. Because when I'm gone, it falls to you, and to your cousins, and to your children someday. The promise doesn't die with me. It lives through you. I don't know if I can. I'm only 12. You won't be 12 forever, and you won't do it alone. That's the point. Family isn't one person carrying everything. It's everyone carrying something. Together. That's how you keep a promise this big. Together. Benjamin coughed, tasted blood, felt the cold creeping in from his extremities. The same cold Sarah must have felt. The same cold he'd fought his entire adult life. Michael, come closer. The boy leaned in. Benjamin took his hand, grip weak but determined. I'm going to tell you something nobody else knows. Something I've carried since I was 20 years old. He paused, gathered strength. The night Sarah died, I could have saved her. Should have saved her. I was bigger than Harold, stronger. I could have stopped him from hitting her. Could have chased her into the storm. Could have done 100 things different. But I didn't, because I was afraid. Grandpa, you were just a kid. I was 20, old enough to know better, old enough to act. But I chose cowardice, and Sarah died because of it. Benjamin's eyes were wet. I've spent 40 years trying to make up for that, trying to save enough children that the scales balance, that Sarah's death means something, that my failure becomes someone else's salvation. You understand? Michael nodded, not really understanding. Not yet, but sensing the importance. Here's what I learned, Michael. We all fail, all of us. We all have moments where we're not brave enough or strong enough or good enough. We all have Sarahs in our past, people we couldn't save, promises we couldn't keep. And we have a choice. We can let those failures destroy us, make us bitter, make us quit, or we can let them transform us, make us better, make us fight harder for the next person who needs us. Benjamin squeezed his hand. That's legacy, not the house or the land or the money. Legacy is turning your worst moment into someone else's best chance. It's taking your pain and using it to prevent someone else's. It's keeping promises even when, especially when they're hard. You carry that forward, Michael. When you fail, and you will fail, you turn it into fuel, into purpose, into love. That's how you honor the people you couldn't save, by saving the ones you can. Michael was crying openly now. I'll remember, I promise. Good boy, now there's one more thing. Benjamin's voice was fading. Each word cost more. Under the oak tree, 3 graves. Sarah, Eleanor, Grace. When I die, bury me next to them. 4 graves. 4 people who taught me everything important. And on my stone put this. He kept his promise, that's all, nothing else, just those 3 words. Because that's all that matters. At the end of everything, did you keep your word? I did. And that's enough. The room was darkening. Or maybe it was Benjamin's vision, hard to tell. The edges were blurring, sounds becoming distant, but he could still see Michael, still feel his hand, still know he'd been heard. Grandpa, I'm scared. Of what? Of you dying, of losing you. Benjamin smiled. You're not losing me, son. I'll be right there under the oak tree, next to the people I love, watching over this place, over all of you. Every child who comes through those doors, I'll be there. Every promise you make, I'll be there. Every time you choose courage over fear, love over hate, action over cowardice, I'll be there. That's what legacy means. We don't die. We multiply. We become the voice in your head that says, keep going. We become the strength you find when you think you have none left. We become the promise you make to yourself. That's immortality. Not living forever, but living in everyone who comes after. He could feel it now. The end. Coming like a tide. Inevitable, but not frightening. He'd done what he came to do. Kept his word. Built something lasting. Turned his greatest failure into his greatest achievement. Michael. His voice was barely a whisper. Tell Abby I'm proud of her. Tell Matt to take care of the place. Tell Daniel his father loved him. Tell all of them. Tell everyone. The promise lives. As long as one person remembers. As long as one child is saved, the promise lives. I'll tell him. Good. Benjamin closed his eyes. I'm tired now. Think I'll rest a bit. You stay if you want. Or go. Either's fine. I'm not afraid anymore. Not of death. Not of anything. Because I know Sarah's waiting. Eleanor and Grace, they're all waiting. And for the first time in 40 years, I get to see them again. Get to tell them I kept my word. That's worth everything. His breathing slowed, shallow, irregular. Michael held his hand, tears falling silent and steady. In the hallway outside, he could hear voices, the family gathering, knowing, preparing. Benjamin's last thought was of Sarah, 8 years old, running into the blizzard. He'd spent 40 years chasing her ghost, trying to make up for failing her. And maybe he had. Maybe she'd forgive him. Maybe she already had. Maybe that's what heaven was. Not harps and clouds, but forgiveness. Second chance. Promises kept at last. December 20th, 1920, 4:47 a.m. Benjamin Thornton died peacefully in his bed, surrounded by family. His last words were barely audible, but Michael heard them, would remember them for the rest of his life. Sarah, I'm coming. Tell Eleanor I kept my promise. Tell her I saved them. I saved them all. Then he was gone. The funeral was 3 days later, December 23rd, 2 days before Christmas. Over 200 people attended, the largest funeral Montana had ever seen. Former children, now adults. Grandchildren. Great-grandchildren. Town officials, ranchers, teachers, ministers, people whose lives Benjamin had touched directly and indirectly. They buried him under the oak tree, next to Sarah, Eleanor, and Grace. 4 graves now, 4 stones. Benjamin's was simple, just as he'd requested. Benjamin Thornton, 1860 to 1920. He kept his promise. Abby gave the eulogy, 41 years old, gray already touching her hair, but strong, steady, her voice carried across the crowd. Benjamin Thornton was not a perfect man. He failed, made mistakes, carried guilt he probably shouldn't have carried. But he was a good man, a man who turned his worst moment into his life's mission, who took his pain and transformed it into love, who proved that family isn't about blood. It's about choice, about showing up, about keeping promises even when they cost everything. She looked at the four graves. He's with them now, the people he loved, the people he lost. And I like to think they're proud of what he built, of what we've become. Because this ranch, this family, this legacy isn't his alone. It's ours, all of ours. Everyone he saved, everyone we've saved, everyone who will be saved. That's Benjamin Thornton's promise. And it doesn't end today. It continues through us, through our children, through every person who decides that saving one child is worth a lifetime of work. That's how we honor him. Not with tears, not with grief, but with action, with love, with promises kept. The crowd was silent. Then slowly they began to speak, one by one, sharing stories, sharing memories, sharing the ways Benjamin had changed their lives. It went on for hours, story after story, life after life, promise after promise. As the sun set and the crowd dispersed, the family remained. Abby, Matt, Daniel, Isaac, Jamie, and Crawford, the original family, the ones who'd been there from the beginning or near enough. Crawford was 77, white-haired, stooped, but present. He'd outlived the man he'd once tried to destroy, had become instead his most unlikely testament, proof that redemption was real, that people could change. I owe him everything, Crawford said quietly. He could have killed me that day in the barn. Should have. I'd kidnapped his daughter. But he didn't. He gave me a chance, let me prove I could be better. And I spent 20 years trying to deserve that chance. Never quite did, but I tried. That's what he taught us. Keep trying. Keep choosing better. Keep being more than your worst moment. They stood in silence for a while. Then Matt spoke. So what happens now? Now we keep going, Abby said. We run this ranch the way Papa taught us. We take in children who need homes. We build family. We keep promises. Nothing changes except who's at the head of the table. Who will that be? All of us, together, the way Papa would have wanted. And that's what they did. The ranch continued. Through the 1920s and the Great Depression. Through World War II and Korea and Vietnam. Through every decade and every challenge and every change the world threw at it. Thornton Creek Ranch endured. The foundation structure Benjamin and Matt had created proved brilliant. No single person controlled everything. Decisions were made collectively. When one generation aged, the next stepped up. Seamless, eternal. By 1960, 40 years after Benjamin's death, the ranch had housed over 500 children. Many stayed in Montana, some spread across the country. All carried the Thornton name and the Thornton values. Family by choice. Love over blood. Promises kept. Michael Thornton, who'd held his grandfather's hand as he died, became the ranch's director in 1948. He was 40 years old, had served in World War II, came home wounded but determined to continue the work. Under his leadership, the ranch expanded, added educational programs, vocational training, mental health services, everything Benjamin would have added if he'd had the resources. Michael married late, had 3 children, taught them what Benjamin had taught him. That legacy isn't what you inherit. It's what you build, what you pass forward, what you choose to be. In February 1960, Michael received a call. A girl had been found wandering Highway 87, 10 years old, hypothermic, barefoot. The authorities had nowhere to take her immediately. Would Thornton Creek accept her? Michael was 52, the same age Benjamin had been when his heart started failing. And for a moment, Michael felt the weight of all those years, all those children, all those promises. He was tired, so tired. But then he remembered sitting beside his grandfather's deathbed, remembered the story of Sarah, remembered Benjamin's words. The promise doesn't die with me. It lives through you. Send her here, Michael said. We'll take her. The girl arrived in a sheriff's car, not on horseback like the old days, but her eyes held the same fear, the same wariness. 65 years and nothing had changed. Children still needed saving. The same look Grace had worn, The same look Abby had worn. The same look hundreds of children had worn. The look of someone who'd learned too young that the world was cruel, that love was conditional, that they were disposable. Michael met her at the door, the same door Benjamin had stood in 65 years ago when Grace arrived. The same threshold, the same moment, history repeating, promise continuing. "Hey there," Michael's voice was gentle. "My name's Michael Thornton. This is Thornton Creek Ranch. You're safe here." The girl stared at him, suspicious, guarded. "Why should I believe you?" "Because 65 years ago, a man named Benjamin Thornton pulled a little girl named Grace out of the snow, saved her life, gave her a home, and she was the first of hundreds. And you're going to be one more because that's what we do here. We save kids nobody else wants. We build family out of strangers. We keep promises our grandfather made before we were born. That's our legacy. That's who we are. What if I don't want to be saved? Then you don't have to be. You can leave any time. Walk out that door. No one will stop you. But while you're here, you'll be fed, clothed, safe, loved if you let us. And when you're ready to leave, if you're ever ready, you'll leave with skills and education and a family that will always take you back. Because once you're a Thornton, you're always a Thornton. That's the promise." The girl's eyes filled with tears. "My name's Emma." Michael's breath caught. Emma, the same name as Benjamin's adopted daughter, the same name as the girl who died at 13. 65 years ago. It couldn't be coincidence. Had to be something more. Some circle completing. Some promise coming full round. "Well, Emma, welcome home." She took his hand, let him lead her inside, into the warmth, into the house that had sheltered so many, into the legacy that refused to die. That night, after Emma had been fed and bathed and put to bed, Michael walked to the 4 graves under the oak tree. The tree was massive now, over 100 years old. Its branches spread like arms, sheltering, protecting, the way Benjamin had sheltered and protected his children. Michael knelt by his grandfather's grave, touched the stone. He kept his promise. "Grandpa, I hope you can hear me. Hope you know. We're still doing it, still saving them. Emma's the latest, close to 600th child since I became director, give or take. And there will be more, always more, because the world's still cruel, still throws kids away, still needs people who remember what you taught us. That one person can make a difference. That promises matter. That love is stronger than blood." The wind moved through the oak leaves, soft and steady, the same sound Benjamin had heard 40 years ago, the same presence, the same approval. "I'm getting old, Grandpa. 52. My kids are grown. They'll take over soon. And their kids after them. The promise keeps passing down, generation to generation, forever. The way you wanted, the way you dreamed." Michael stood, looked at the house, lights glowing in every window. Emma's room was on the 2nd floor, 3rd from the left. Grace's old room, the circle completing. "Rest easy, old man. Your work's in good hands. We won't let you down." He walked back to the house. Inside, Emma was already asleep, dreaming whatever dreams traumatized children dream. But safe, protected, beginning the long journey from survivor to thriver. The same journey hundreds had made before her, the same journey hundreds more would make. The promise continued. Years became decades. Decades became generations. The 1960s passed. Then the 70s and 80s. America changed, Montana changed, but Thornton Creek Ranch endured. Through social movements and technological revolutions, through wars and peace, through economic booms and busts, the ranch stood, solid, constant, eternal. By the year 2080 years after Benjamin's death, over 2,000 children had passed through Thornton Creek Ranch. The foundation that Michael had expanded now included multiple facilities, group homes, foster networks, educational programs, mental health services, everything Benjamin had dreamed of and more. The original ranch house became a museum, preserved exactly as it had been. Grace's drawings still on the walls, the dining table still set for 14, the bed still made, a monument to what one man's promise had built. But the work continued. New houses were built. New children were saved. The promise evolved, but never ended. could never end. Because some promises transcend the people who make them. Some promises become bigger than any single life. They become movements, legacies, eternal truths. December 20th, 2020. 100 years to the day after Benjamin Thornton's death. Thornton Creek Ranch held a centennial celebration. Over 1,000 people attended. Descendants of the original children, current residents, staff, donors, government officials. The governor of Montana gave a speech. So did a U.S. senator. So did 3 professors who'd written books about the ranch's impact on American child welfare. But the most important speech came from a woman named Sarah Thornton Hayes, 85 years old, great-great-granddaughter of Daniel Hayes, the first child Benjamin had saved after Eleanor and Grace died. She stood at the podium, small and bent with age, but her voice was strong, clear, carrying across the crowd. 100 years ago today, a man named Benjamin Thornton died in the house behind me. He was 60 years old. His heart had given out. He'd worked himself to death trying to keep a promise he'd made to his dead sister 40 years earlier. A promise to save children, to give them homes, to prove that family was about love, not blood. She paused, let the words settle. When he died, he'd saved 87 children directly. 87 lives that would have been lost or broken or destroyed. That's not a small number. That's not insignificant. But here's what's remarkable. Those 87 children went on to save thousands more. Through adoption, through foster care, through social work and teaching, in medicine and ministry. They took what Benjamin taught them and spread it, multiplied it, made it eternal. Sarah looked around, at the crowd, at the house, at the 4 graves under the oak tree. Today, we estimate that over 50,000 lives have been directly impacted by Thornton Creek Ranch. 50,000 children who had homes because Benjamin Thornton decided his sister's death would mean something, that his cowardice would become someone else's courage, that his pain would become someone else's healing. That's legacy. That's what happens when one person decides that promises matter, that love matters, that family matters. The crowd was silent, listening, understanding. Benjamin Thornton has been dead for a century, but his promise lives. It lives in every child we house, every family we build, every life we transform. It lives in all of us because we are his promise. We are the proof that one man, one choice, one moment of courage can echo across generations, can change the world, can make everything different. Sarah stepped back from the podium. The crowd rose. Applause thundered across the ranch for Benjamin, for his promise, for everything it had become. That evening after the celebrations ended and the crowds dispersed, Sarah walked to the 4 graves. She'd made this walk 1,000 times over 85 years, brought flowers, said prayers, told stories. The graves were old now, the stones weathered, but the names were still clear. Sarah Thornton, Eleanor Thornton, Grace Thornton, Benjamin Thornton. 4 people who'd changed everything. 4 lives that had created thousands more. Sarah knelt on the grass, joints creaking, age demanding its due. She placed fresh flowers on each grave, then spoke to the darkness, to the ghosts, to the memory of love. Great-great-grandfather, didn't know if you can hear me. Don't know if any of this works the way we hope, but just in case, I wanted you to know, we kept your promise, all of us, every generation. We saved the children, we built the families. We proved that love was stronger than blood, and we'll keep doing it. Long after I'm gone, long after everyone who knew you directly is gone, because some promises are too important to die. Some legacies are too powerful to end. You started something that will never finish, never complete, never stop. That's immortality, not living forever, but building something that does. She stood slowly, looked at the ranch, at the original house now a museum, at the new buildings housing children right now, at the lights glowing in windows, at the life continuing, evolving, growing 100 years, 50,000 lives, and counting. The promise lived, and as long as one child needed saving, as long as one person remembered Benjamin Thornton's story, as long as love was stronger than abandonment, the promise would continue to live, forever. In 2024, 104 years after Benjamin's death, a new child arrived at Thornton Creek Ranch, a boy, 10 years old, found living in his car with his mother after she died of an overdose. No other family, no place to go. The authorities called Thornton Creek, and Thornton Creek said yes. The boy's name was Benjamin. A coincidence, or perhaps something more. Some circle completing yet again. Some promise renewing itself for another generation. The current director, a woman named Rachel Thornton, great-great-great-granddaughter of Abigail Winters, met the boy at the door. "Hey there, Benjamin. Welcome to Thornton Creek Ranch. You're safe here." The boy looked up at her, hollow-eyed, frightened. "Why should I believe you?" Rachel smiled. She'd answered this question 1,000 times, would answer it 1,000 more. Because 144 years ago, a man named Benjamin Thornton made a promise to save children, to build families, to prove that love was stronger than anything. And we've been keeping that promise ever since. You're the latest, but you won't be the last. The promise never ends. As long as kids need homes, we'll be here. That's who we are. That's what we do. That's the legacy we carry forward. The boy considered this. Then slowly he stepped inside, into the warmth, into the history, into the promise that refused to die. And somewhere under an oak tree in Montana, 4 graves rested in the darkness. 4 people who had changed everything. 4 souls who'd proven that one life, one choice, one promise could echo across centuries. Benjamin Thornton, who'd failed his sister but saved hundreds. Who'd turned cowardice into courage. Who'd built a family from strangers. Who'd kept his promise. The promise lived and would live forever. Because that's what love does. It survives, it multiplies, it transforms, it endures. One child at a time, one family at a time, one promise at a time. Forever. Montana, winter, snow falling soft and silent, the way it always falls when something eternal is being born. The ranch stands solid, lights glowing, children sleeping safe, the promise keeping itself. And if you listen close on quiet nights when the wind moves through the oak leaves, you can almost hear it. A voice, old and tired but satisfied, speaking to the darkness, speaking to the future, speaking to anyone who will listen. I kept my promise, and you'll keep it too. Together, forever. That's legacy, that's love, that's family. The promise lives, always. Montana, present day, 2024. The oak tree stands as it has for over a century. 4 graves beneath its branches. 4 names carved in weathered stone. Sarah Thornton, Eleanor Thornton, Grace Thornton, Benjamin Thornton. A woman places flowers on each grave. She is Rachel Thornton, current director of Thornton Creek Ranch, great-great-great-granddaughter of Abigail Winters. Inside the house, 15 children are having dinner. Laughter spills through open windows. The same table Benjamin built seats them all. The same walls shelter them. The same promise protects them. Rachel touches Benjamin's headstone, traces the words with her finger. He kept his promise. "We all did, Grandpa," she whispers, "and we always will." She walks back toward the house. The lights glow warm against the gathering dusk. Inside, a 10-year-old boy named Benjamin helps set the table. The newest arrival. Over 3,000 children had passed through these doors. But not the last, never the last. The promise lives. Benjamin Thornton saved 87 children in his lifetime. Those 87 saved thousands more. Today, over 50,000 lives have been touched by his promise. Thornton Creek Ranch still operates, still welcomes children nobody else wants, still proves that family is what you choose. One man, one promise, 144 years.